What's up guys, welcome back to my channel Anime Fiction. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto Was the Emperor of the Universe Part 9. And if you did enjoy this video, please give this video a like, and if you're new to my channel and like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
25th chapter. Naruto's plan completed. His real body relocated to the planet's core and continued training in both worlds, Real and Soul Land. While his original body was training, Naruto's clones continued to materialize and fulfill their jobs. He used random individuals on a daily basis to conduct the interviews. Every day, he practiced with his team and continued to liberate more cities. However, none of his adversaries were able to track him down. Naruto appeared from beneath the soil, leaving nothing except his efforts behind. He avoided targets that were guarded by his adversaries. Naruto, unlike Klarion and the Suicide Squad, could easily detect them and avoided them because he didn't want to risk giving them any information. He desired to appear at full might and strike them down like lightning. Aside from that, the story of the Sage of Six Paths began alongside the story of the Emperor of Mankind. The story was published weekly with outstanding art, and both readily piqued people's interest as they were hungry for more information. Naruto revealed them what he performed and his deeds in his story. It was a smack in the face to his enemies, demonstrating that he didn't think anything of them. He even demonstrated in his stories how he would defeat them in combat. It was a fascinating piece of narrative for the citizens, and it even served as news because it was happening. Many of the events were still fiction because Naruto had yet to combat the majority of the people. However, the public was unaware of this, and none of the other parties were willing to publicly oppose it. Not only that, but Naruto also began animation ventures and live-action programs to appeal to a wide range of audiences. He modified several stories from the ninja world's history in addition to his own. Aside from that, Naruto resurrected the world. He wiped out all the barren fields and filled every open space with helpful flora, beautifying the land. Naruto planted veggies and fruits in areas where there was a food shortage. He cleared the oceans and lands of garbage, allowing the world to absorb it or altogether eliminating it. He breathed new life into all existing plants and animals by cleansing them of all diseases and toxins.
He didn't stop with the animals. Naruto also covered people. In fact, he covered the entire Earth. He sent out energy signals from all across the planet to cover it all. The energy cleansed and strengthened the body. It cured mental illnesses and provided them the ability to battle other ailments, while Naruto was still incapable of doing so from afar. He needed to get near to the cause of the life-threatening disorders in order to heal them. Aside from that, Naruto teleported army members back to their respective countries.
Another country's army had no right to remain in another country because it would most certainly be used to rule it or cause turmoil. The majority of the army personnel were from the United States because it was the de facto evil empire of the modern globe and required hundreds of military bases outside of its borders to control its territory.
That was their genuine objective, not the drivel they spread, to police the world and defend it from evil. The United States had no right to do such things, and no one should believe such foolishness from them because the country was responsible for global catastrophe and the collapse of several countries. It never grew tired of trying to bring other countries down or enslaving them to their whims.
It was not the fault of the lower-ranking soldiers, but of those at the top. Unfortunately, troops were always killed for frivolous causes and selfish gain. Internal warfare had no place in the world Naruto was establishing, so he securely returned the people to their homes and relocated them outside of cities to avoid being killed by the police or someone else due to their unexpected appearance. Naruto's clones spent time with his team and independently with different folks, so he didn't just work all the time. Naruto would go on team outings after training and participate in various activities. They'd go to the movies together. They would eat at several eateries. They were going shopping. They would visit theme parks and water parks. They would participate in extreme sports. Many of these things were also new to Naruto, and he relished the opportunity. He also demonstrated extreme activities from his world to the team. They would have to halt their body in some way at the last moment if they skydived into a forest or a body of water without any safety equipment. The one who came to a complete stop the closest to the ground won. There was the jungle tag game, in which they hopped through branches and used their talents. There were also fish adventures, in which the ninja converted into fish and explored the aquatic body while fighting a larger fish. There was the Beast War, in which players dressed up like their favorite animal and fought each other. Other games focused on weapon specializations and elemental powers. These activities allowed the team get to know each other and demonstrated Naruto's genuine desire to befriend them rather than treat them like maggots. He also entertained the girls and took them on solo dates. Naruto had prior experience with similar activities, which made the females very happy because they got to see another side of him. He prepared meals for them, and they prepared meals for him.
He made stuff for them. He told them stories and made them laugh. He took them for walks and on the dance floor. He conquered everything by singing and playing with them.
Naruto made time for Konan and Laura as well. He took his time and closed the gap between them. He had a lot of charisma, so it was difficult to ignore and leave him. He could read people like a book and quickly access and befriend their hearts. Konan relaxed with time and continued telling him that she wouldn't give him the eyes until she saw how he handled opposition. Naruto had no problem with that and kept saying it every day. When his Earth clones visited Laura, they formed from the ground surrounding the girl. She had been sent to young Justice, and Naruto had vowed to pay her a secret visit. Without a doubt, Naruto became her strongest bond in the current world, and his presence made her joyful.
And it wasn't just these people who forged new friendships. Naruto's clones who had assumed other identities also did. His group was known as the Ultimates, and they went around fighting little crime. During that period, the clones were more acquainted with Birds of Prey, the Justice League, Titans, and a variety of other heroes. Supergirl got to know him and had conversations with Gilgamesh. She appears to have been intrigued by him and may have noticed similarities between him and the Emperor. The only distinction was that the Emperor persona ruled and regarded others as minions. In just a week, the world experienced huge transformation, and the average citizen finally had hope for the future. A hero had arrived to save them from the darkness and misery, a hero who fought not only the villains but also the societal concerns.
It was a hero who literally transformed the world, unlike those who came before him, who could show nothing tangible for their accomplishments, and it all happened in a week.
By the end of a month since Naruto's emergence, the entire globe was adoring him and singing his praises. The outcome of his acts was evident, and every city he liberated foreshadowed what was to come. Except for the criminals, everyone wanted Naruto to visit their areas.
Before Naruto arrived in their area, many small-time crooks began to quit the field and seek other employment. Naruto's abilities were obvious, and he was on his way to liberate humanity, and no one could stop him. He was unbeatable. He was humanity's will. He was mankind's emperor. Even the darkest locations, such as Gotham, had been transformed into a lovely metropolis that was highly secure and clean because to his intervention. There was no darkness, sadness, or filth in the area. The population appeared to have collectively awoken from their dreams to a glorious reality. People were smiling and talking to strangers, which was unusual in Gotham because talking to strangers on the streets was considered extremely dangerous. Within a month, the globe appeared to have transformed into a lovely place. Naruto's effectiveness was obvious to everyone, causing diverse reactions in the various forces. The villains were scared of what would happen to them after witnessing many of their people change and perish. They were also frustrated and angry at not being able to apprehend him.
Not everyone received a second chance, and many individuals perished as a result. Not everyone was intelligent enough to grasp and adjust to the arrival of the new period, and Naruto did not forgive anyone who committed murder and other crimes after his authority was established in an area. The criminals feared him, but the heroes realized what they could have done if they had acted. They could have accomplished all Naruto did as a team. They despised him, though, because of his murder and torture. They had came across the altered criminals and witnessed their dread. They witnessed Naruto's heinous treatment of them. It was cruel and sent shivers down their spines.
None of them anticipated Naruto to be so cruel after being so good to them, and they now understood his principles. Naruto rewarded good individuals with respect and rewards, and the award increased in proportion to the value of the deed. While doing so, he considered criminals as useless meatbags that might be used and wiped if they did not follow his commands. They had tracked down everyone Naruto had tortured and had removed the explosive seals from them. Naruto had let it happen and had not resisted Zatanna's magic. However, Since Naruto had saved their life force signal into his memory and a clone was always observing the people who were marked, this didn't fix anything. It also did not remove their dread, therefore the bulk of those offenders did not dare to return to the dark path. And the unfortunates were made an example of. Everyone witnessed how they died a horrible death, as it was transmitted directly to their minds, and they watched the criminal scum be erased piece by piece.
It demonstrated to the heroes that they couldn't halt the killings unless Naruto was apprehended. But, like the villains, they were frustrated by their inability to apprehend him.
It was simple. He was backed by Gia, and none of them could stand up to him. In terms of Gia, Naruto eventually met him in the second week when he began to die as a result of his increased power.
Naruto, like the sage, activated the virus within his genetics when he reached a level of power beyond his species. His cells began to reject the chakra, causing energy to be evacuated and cells to die at an alarming rate. The process was more terrible than the sage's since Naruto was more human and what he had done was more severe than the sage's. Naruto and Kurama have progressed from city eraser to huge planet level. The boost in power was huge, and the effects of that step were swift. Naruto was unable to save himself, and neither could Kurama, who was also affected by the virus, albeit in a far more severe form. Kurama was made entirely of energy, hence he was physically dying.
Gia came to Naruto's rescue just as he was about to die since he was caught in the middle of the world with no way out.
Naruto was summoned to her domain, where he was relieved of his pain. He would have gone to meet his parents if he had been 1 minute late.
Even though it was an emergency, he maintained his cool and never sobbed about it. Naruto approached the gorgeous woman with respect and thanks in his heart, greeting his savior with a grin.
Thank you for saving me, Miss Gia. I will make sure to repay this favor soon. Naruto disliked owing favors, but he was confident in his ability to repay them.
Gia, the woman, was stunningly gorgeous, with brown hair and green eyes. She was dressed in white and exuded a pleasant demeanor.
But that was how she felt about Naruto. Gia detested humanity and had nearly destroyed it numerous times in the past. Even today, she had a strong dislike for the vermin. She wasn't this nice lady who had innocent people's blood on her hands. Naruto was aware of the myths, but he was unaware of the truth, and Gia had not acted in thousands of years. So, in his opinion, she was good enough to not be tormented. She was a primordial, which meant she was immensely powerful. She was a being who symbolized the planets across the universe, making her a powerful universal being. The Olympians were her subordinates in the hierarchy, and they all lived in the realm of immortals, which included all of the pantheons, with each immortal having their own particular realm within that pantheon.
Don't worry, child. You are my dear child, and a mother never asks anything of her children. And, it was I who brought you here without permission, Gia said as she appeared beside Naruto. He couldn't react to her movement, which was fortunate because he didn't need to. She kissed his hair and forehead after warmly touching his face and hugging him. Kushina seemed to be embracing him, and he didn't understand why she was being so motherly. You are so gentle and beautiful, Gia remarked, holding his face in her hands. Naruto made no attempt to avoid her contact. He was attempting to figure out her personality, and it was puzzling him. She sincerely cared about him, but he didn't see the point. I hope you don't mind, but I have some questions. I appreciate the concern shown by a charming woman, but I need a reason. Why do you care about my well-being? Why am I here? Naruto inquired, placing his hands over hers and placing them down while looking into her eyes. Few people would have the audacity to stare at her like that, and the majority of those who did not live. She didn't mind, though, and merely smiled because she knew how he'd react. Gia took him to a table and invited him to take a seat. Her realm was lush with foliage, and the two were seated in the middle of a flower field teeming with little spirits and butterflies. I don't mind answering your question. Naruto, you are essential to the survival of this world. Without you, it will perish in the future. I looked everywhere for the savior, but none of them were worthy. They were all powerful, even more powerful than you, but they all lacked the leadership qualities that you possess. You are the leader that the universe requires for survival, so my love for you is obvious, especially because you are loved by nature and were born on Earth. You are like my son, and I am always ready to support you. Gia replied in adoration, indicating that she had been watching him for many years.
She also dropped a bomb nonchalantly. Naruto didn't shout, but he did want to flip the table. He already had a lot on his plate, and now he's being informed that the universe needs him.
Naruto chuckled as his brain worked at full power.
I already planned to conquer the universe, so there is no problem with that task, and I am grateful for the advance warning, Naruto said. However, why can't you do it? Aren't you extremely powerful, or is it a problem beyond your existence? Naruto didn't avoid the issue and tried to gather the necessary information to make future plans. He needed to know where his adversary was. It was obvious that it was more powerful than Gia.
I wish I could do such a thing, but even I lack the capability. It involves an existence beyond my power, which is why there is a need for a leader who can unite others. You will need the support of others like me, and you will need to step up to my realm of power. I will assist you in this task and allow you to operate on your own mostly because I am not allowed to interfere directly in the mortal world. I see, and what's the deadline for this crisis? You have 20 to 30 years before it begins. I don't have the exact date, and it was extremely difficult to even obtain this information, Gia said, her face a little sad because she had lost her daughter Ria as a result of it. Ria had attempted divination for a future threat and died after only a few warnings. It had caused her enormous heartache because Ria was her cherished daughter, and she couldn't bring her back. Whatever was coming could wipe them all out.
When Naruto noticed Gaia's slight hint of melancholy, he placed his palm on hers. He considered 20 years and concluded that it would be more than enough time to complete the work. It would have been inconceivable in ninja world, but it was just a matter of time in the modern world.
I will be victorious, so please keep a smile on your face because sadness doesn't suit you. Gia smiled at his remarks since she had anticipated him to be that confident. He was completely convinced that he was the emperor in the will of humanity. For the endeavor, confidence, determination, charisma, and wisdom were required. I firmly believe in you. If you're lonely, I don't mind keeping you company, or is that also against your rules? Naruto felt comforted by those words and stare. Naruto offered his company since he felt Gia needed it, and it will also solidify their bond. Ha ha ha, you are such a precious child, Gia exclaimed, agreeing enthusiastically while also inviting Kurama. 1 month has passed, and no one can argue that it has been anything but eventful. Naruto emerged from his seclusion and went to one of his bases to bathe. He'd been sitting in the same spot for far too long. It was the longest meditation he'd ever done. For a long time, his body had not needed to eat or move since nature energy had filled him up, and even his chakra could substitute his need for food.
Naruto had advanced much during the month of meditation. He had regained full control of his abilities and had progressed to the molecular stage, which granted him enormous power. Mastering the cellular stage with Kurama had given him large planet-level power, but mastering the molecular stage had given him star-level power. His chakra had gotten exceedingly dense and was expanding in quality along with his very being every second, boosting the power of his base and so increasing his final power level even further. He was now prepared to compete with the threats on Earth without fear of being one-shotted. However, he was knocked out of his Biju Sage mode, a hybrid of Kurama and Naruto, and lost control over the molecular stage. Being knocked out of one of them for a split second might be incredibly harmful because Naruto's power would decrease to that of a big city.
To address this issue, Naruto had programmed his Fuinjutsu seals to automate the process. Now he could relax about losing control and becoming fodder during battle. Even the Fuinjutsu seal matrix was not impenetrable. The seals were engraved on his cells, while the core was inscribed on his bones. However, these seals may fail due to external influence. So there was always the chance of being depowered, especially if someone with the ability to nullify his chakra came. Nonetheless, Naruto was unconcerned because life was always full of hazards, and even a regular human lived a perilous existence where he may be killed by a falling brick or an unexpected car. Naruto appeared in his base room, stripped naked, and into the hot spring he had prepared. The hot water provided him with great comfort, and Kurama joined him in the bath as a chibi version. It had been a long time since Kurama had appeared in the actual world, so he eagerly jumped into the hot bath. When do we fight? I can't wait to see the look on their faces, Kurama exclaimed as they emerged from training. They'd been fighting each other and clones of all the animals Naruto knew about. They had spent 30 days in the Soul Land, which was a very long time at their speeds of many times the speed of light. It was especially amazing once Gia had assisted them by providing data on various creatures around the universe, so they didn't have to worry about being ignorant of any species. Naruto smiled at those words, feeling a surge of exhilaration as well. He was a warrior, and with all that strength at his disposal, it was impossible not to want to put it to the test. However, he could never allow a reckless action and had to proceed with caution. Soon, we will fight. I have already selected the targets, and we will hit them hard before anyone can intervene, Naruto said as he ran his hand through his golden hair, laughing at the hero's naivete. Who is our prey? Kurama inquired, his grin animalistic. The terrible beast enjoyed bullying weak creatures, and he was aware that they were preparing to harass some weaklings. He could almost see their terrified and despondent expressions as they begged for compassion. The global guardians will be our first target, followed by Asia and Africa, and finally Europe and America, Naruto said as he utilized light manipulation to illustrate the forms of the people they would be battling against. His people had been gathering information about the groups on each continent, which he had used to formulate his plans. He had assessed the various groups and ranked them accordingly.
Penguin and Black Mask were assigned the duty, and they performed admirably. The two were bursting with excitement and working non-stop because they recognized a potential in Naruto. They saw his efforts and realized there was a very minimal probability of failure and big benefits.
They both had the opportunity to become significant players in the human empire of the new era, and they took it wholeheartedly. Penguin collected data from Europe and America, while Black Mask traveled to Africa, Asia, and Australia. That wasn't all. Black Mask had been involved in the manipulation of the Australia-based Hero Squad, and he had managed to gather them all in one area for Naruto. The Global Guardians were a Cold War-era worldwide team of heroes. Many of its members were also active on their own, but their major operations were around Australia because Stormwatch and Justice League handled Europe and America. Each continent had a major set of heroes who safeguarded them, and their methods varied. However, the outcomes were very similar. People did not live in a safe and ideal environment because the heroes lacked future perception and political expertise. Crime wasn't always so obvious, and it was here that these heroes fell miserably short. Returning to the conversation, Kurama whistled at the list in the target's diverse abilities. I assume there will be a gap between each fight.
After taking out the Global Guardians, we'll see how they react and continue our assault accordingly. From what I've heard, these groups don't get along and each has their own territory. The heroes are sticklers for rules, so they'll most likely wait for permission.
I see, Kurama said sweetly, and what are you going to do with the Global Guardians? They are heroes, so I didn't think you wanted to enslave them.
I don't want to enslave them. I'll give them a choice. Surrender and follow my rules, or retire from hero business. I don't need them getting in my way and putting their lives in danger for nothing, Naruto said as he stood up and the water dried up on his body and clothes appeared to cover him up. I hope they never force your hand, Kurama whispered solemnly, knowing that life may take an unforeseen turn and some hero could perish. There are always casualties in war, and everyone participates knowing that risk. I am above all of them, so I will never put my life below theirs. If there is a choice between my life and theirs, they will die. Naruto assured him that there was no risk of being emotionally or mentally hurt as a result of such choices. Kurama stared at his imposing physique and grinned gleefully at those remarks since he didn't want Naruto to crumble after making those bad mistakes. He didn't have anything else to say and flew into Soul Land.
Naruto went to see his science team after he completed bathing. Mr. Freeze led the crew, which included Poison Ivy, Man-Bat, and Firefly, all of whom were knowledgeable and inventive.
Penguin had supplied the research labs with the required equipment. Naruto had assigned them the task of genetically modifying his DNA. Naruto had given them his blood without their knowledge and requested them to utilize it as a foundation while giving them with other useful DNA. He had gotten Martian DNA, Martian Manhunter, Kryptonian DNA, Supergirl, Temerian DNA, Starfire, Demonic DNA, Raven, White Martian DNA, Megan, Speedster DNA, Flash, Amazonian DNA, Diana, Moon Maiden's DNA, Poison Ivy's DNA, Volcana's DNA, Livewire's DNA, Killer Frost DNA, Shazam's DNA and multitude other DNA from useful sources.
The team's objective was to flawlessly combine them all so that it was reproducible and long-lasting. He didn't want to die because he had altered his genetic structure. The change would allow him to become an ultimate being in the universe over time. He merely needed the present team to show him some visible progress, and then he'd add extra scientists to the group to speed things up. "Good morning, team. How's the project?" Naruto said as he entered the research lab, which was clean and well equipped, as the physicians had requested. He was certainly pleased with their advancement in terms of personality and morality, and he hoped to see some good work done as a result of that progress. When they saw their supervisor approaching, they turned away from the glass container in the center that held their experiment. None of them were afraid of him anymore, or Firefly would wet himself if Naruto appeared unexpectedly. "The project is going great, love," Pamela said with a bright smile, as she, like the other females, had grown very close to him over the month. It was the first time she had spent so much time with someone who was similar to her and who had fulfilled her desires. She was intrigued by the changes she had witnessed throughout the world. The dates had also worked wonders, and she wanted to monopolize him, but he was too dominant and wouldn't budge. She didn't want to leave him or be evicted, so she avoided making frivolous threats. She even demonstrated her worth by inviting Livewire and Killer Frost to join the organization. She had intended to bring Harley with her, but Naruto had stopped her and alerted her that something was wrong with the Suicide Squad. Pam, on the other hand, had a good time with the crew and changed her moniker to the Green Queen. Poison Ivy was no longer appropriate for her position as a royal knight and eventual empress. Naruto led her into his arms and kissed her lightly. "How long will it take? And, have you managed to mix them?" Naruto said as he sat down, Pam on his knee.
The team gathered around him, and only Victor was able to confront him on an eye level, while the other two struggled to look him in the eyes when it came to work. As the team's leader, Victor responded, "We have managed to make multiple samples with 2 or 3 sources with the core DNA. It is still out of our hands to get all of these exceptional materials to match in a perfect manner. The materials keep rejecting each other and some of them consume each other, so it is impossible to achieve with this level of technology. Sir, we aren't specialists in this field, and this is our first time interacting with these kinds of materials, so our progress is very good when considering our limited experience and equipment," Man-Bat Kirk added to Victor's statements. He had grown close to these folks, and they had become his friends, unlike others in the outside world. "Hey, don't worry, I'm pleased with your progress, and I'll bring a specialist to the group soon, but, did you enjoy the challenge?" Naruto grinned as he looked at them, his tone kind and allowing them to relax. Except for Firefly, who didn't appear interested in doing such a job, the feedback was encouraging. Naruto demoted him and sent him to the weapon development team, which suited him well.
Naruto also relocated Victor to that field because his knowledge with weaponry was superior, and the team had struck a snag, forcing the research to be put on hold for a while.
"Now, go prepare for combat. This is your moment to shine," Naruto said as he stood up and walked away from the squad. Before Naruto told his crew, the combat plans were already in motion. Black Mask had gathered all of the Global Guardians in one location by convincing them that it was much safer for all of them to be present before he gave the knowledge. Black Mask approached them and convinced them that providing information about Emperor was advantageous to all sides because he didn't want Emperor to continue torturing him. He informed them that discussing the Emperor's sensitive knowledge caused individuals to vanish, therefore it was preferable if they all gathered to avoid being killed.
The Global Guardians considered a trap, but they believed Emperor could be managed because to the presence of Dr. Mist and Olympians. Even if he was too powerful, they'd only have to hold out for a few minutes before additional heroes intervened. With the threat of a mind control strike looming, the Global Guardians assembled at their base in Australia. It was out in the middle of nowhere, within a mountain, far from the city.
The Global Guardians evolved from a post-war organization known as the Dome. The Dome was created in 1957 as an international police organization by non-US USSR states. Originally, it managed the operations of member nations' superheroes. The Justice Society inspired these heroes, who included the immortal Dr. Mist, Percival and Cyril Sheldrake of England, the Gaucho of Argentina, the Legionary of Italy, the Musketeer of France, and the wingman of Sweden. Dr. Mist founded the Global Guardians when the original representatives retired to serve as a task force to cover the nations that didn't have any heroes. The Guardians had members from all around the world, but it took some time before they made touch with other American heroes.
The group consisted of 12 members from various countries, each with unique abilities. The group's leader was known as Dr. Mist. Nomo, the African empire of Kor's wizard king, stood in the Pillar of Life and was granted immortality. He had lived for 11,000 years and assumed the name Dr. Mist in the 20th century. Dr. Mist was a balding man with dark skin and a short beard. His looks were attractive, and he didn't look a day older than 25. His eyes were magical, with red runes revolving in both of them. He donned a blue gown and held a mystical stick with a lion's head on it. All of his equipment enhanced his abilities, and his physical body was encrusted with magical runes. He was a wise and experienced man with a wealth of experience from his time as emperor and his voyage following the empire's destruction. He traveled the world, learning as he went and fighting innumerable opponents. Vandal Savage was one of the villains he had faced, and he had also fought against other heroes. Aristides Demetrios, better known as the Olympian, was a Greek hero. He wore the mystical golden fleece, which provided him Hercules' strength as well as several other powers associated with the heroes known as the Argonauts. He was a big man with dark hair and a huge beard. He was dressed in dark armor beneath the golden fleece, and he donned a golden helmet with huge horns. Despite his intimidating appearance, the huge giant had a loving heart and genuinely cared about his buddies. Even if he disagreed with them, he was the first to leap in front of danger. Olympian was in a relationship with Godiva, a fellow comrade.
He was not the son of Zeus or Hercules, but rather a seeker of the Golden Fleece. Following that, he met Hercules and was persuaded to take up the mantle of a hero. The fleece protected him from any damage, but it didn't cover his entire body, thus he wasn't indestructible.
Elisa became the third Crimson Fox after the other two died. She was the heiress to the Dharma's fortune and the previous Crimson Fox's cousin. Elisa, like the previous foxes, was a gorgeous lady with the ability to control pheromones who donned a red suit with dark claws capable of cutting through the strongest things on the world. She was a French hero with a strong personality and style who could be highly manipulative. She was also quite flirtatious and was in a relationship with Green Lantern Hal Jordan. Nonetheless, she was a vital part of the organization, providing intelligence, strategy, and wealth. Sandstorm was a Syrian superhero who worked alongside Black Adam. Terrorists murdered Nabil's family, and a despot gassed his sister. He was a vigilante who repeatedly saved children in Syria from terrorist cells. Before ultimately falling under the supervision of Black Adam and bringing some change to the local territory alongside his Global Guardians companions. The Global Guardians were one of the factors that caused the Middle East war to end and the region to begin to heal. However, that tranquility was coming to an end, and corruption had already infiltrated the systems of these places. As a result, ridding the land of evil remained a challenging task. Sandstorm wished the Black Adam would dominate the region, but the man was unwilling to accept the responsibility, and the other forces would retaliate brutally if he did. Regardless of his past, Nabil was a loving soul who sought to save others the agony he had experienced. He desired to make his country a pleasant environment for future generations to live. He was a tall, dark-skinned man with long hair who has the ability to manipulate sand. He was dressed in sand and wore a wooden mask. The Rising Sun was a member of the Global Guardians and one of the most famous Japanese superheroes. Izumi Yasunari was a long-serving member of the Global Guardians and a Japanese solar physicist. His grandparents were survivors of the atomic bomb detonated by the United States on Nagasaki, Japan, in 1945, which ended World War II. They both died of cancer later in life. Yasunari's mother had the same thing, developing cancer but recovering with chemotherapy. Yasunari and his brother, Wataru, were terrified and went on to become cancer researchers. Kaori, their problematic sister, joined a religious cult. Rising Sun was a founding member of Solaris, the Japanese equivalent of the Justice League formed to protect the hero Ultraman from the Monster Army. His first known assignment was to assist Adam in the deconstruction of a bomb in Japan. He later assisted Robin in defeating a villain. Encouraged by Dr. Mist, he assisted Superman in locating a piece of old armor, and soon after, He and his guardians joined Superman in battles against ancient sorcerers performing a spell among the Moai statues of Easter Island. He was instrumental in saving Japan during the crisis on Infinite Earths.
Rising Sun was a powerful and gigantic man who could absorb and use the sun's energy. With such a formidable skill, he was one of Japan's most powerful heroes and a member of the Global Guardians. Rising Sun was a humble guy with lofty goals, regardless of his power. He aided people in both his public and hero lives. He was willing to give up his time for the greater good of society. Tora Olofsdotter portrayed Ice Maiden, a superhero who uses ice magic. She was a member of the Global Guardians, where she became close to fire. Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern, was her boyfriend.
Tora was born into a Romani family in Norway. Tora Olofsdotter began demonstrating cryokinetic abilities as a young girl, which her father was desperate to keep hidden from the rest of the clan. He was afraid Tora's grandfather would regard her as the chosen one, the return of a deity. He was also scared that his father would utilize Tora for illegal purposes. Tora, on the other hand, was playing soccer with some other girls one day. One became enraged and began beating Tora, prompting Tora to use her skills to repel her. This occurred while Tora's family, including her grandfather, was nearby. Tora fled to Germany with her parents and sister as a result of this. Tora's grandfather hunted them down when she was 13 and tried to remove her by force with the help of his soldiers.
Tora's father advised her to keep it cold in order to defend herself. She was hesitant at first, but then she unleashed her abilities. She killed her grandfather and his soldiers by freezing them to death. Unfortunately, her activities had also led to her father's death. Tora continued to run with her mother and siblings until an opportunity arose for her to join the Global Guardians.
She had been with the squad for a long time and was like family to them, especially Green Fire. Ice Maiden's disposition was an interesting mix of girl-next-door wholesomeness and innocent abroad naivete, which contrasted with her buddy and partner Green Fire's impulsive, even troublesome tendencies.
Beatriz B. Bonilla da Costa, alias Green Fire, was a pyrokinetic heroine from Brazil.
She began her career as an amateur model on the beaches of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, before moving on to become a showgirl and stage performer. Later, she became an undercover covert operative for the Brazilian government. She was subjected to a pyroplasmic explosion during one of her missions. The accident that gave her fire-based superhuman abilities inspired her to adopt the alias Green Fire and join the international superhero team the Global Guardians.
Dora Lee, alias Godiva, was a stunning British socialite who became the United Kingdom's leading superhero after being recruited into the Global Guardians, a multinational crime-fighting organization. Dora was a metahuman with the ability to control the movement of her hair as if it were limbs, giving her incredible strength and dexterity. Each hair could hold 1 ton of force, and she had at least 150,000 hairs on her head, making her a formidable foe for the criminals.
Godiva has complete control of her hair, as if it were a slew of thin tentacles emerging from her skull. Her altered hair cells are permeated by a psionic field, generating mutual attraction across the spaces between strands. These relatively modest forces work together to create greater forces. She can move her hair in whichever direction she wants by concentrating. She may whip it in the air like a whip, or rotate it in a fan-like motion. She can use it to bind people or objects as if it were rope, or she can use it to hoist objects that are heavier than she can lift with her arms. The weight of an object she raises is held aloft by the psionic force coursing through her hair, not her scalp, skull, or neck. Godiva could also execute precise hair manipulations such as lock-picking or needle threading, as well as sophisticated acts of coordination such as typing or shuffling a deck of cards. Despite the lack of nerve endings in her hair, she was able to feel sensations on all areas of her hair through mental feedback from her psionic field. Godiva was confident with that degree of authority, which was heightened by her looks. She was a lovely lady with long blonde hair. Her beautiful beauty enchanted people, but she eventually developed feelings for Olympian. Godiva was a caring and kind person who battled for the people despite her arrogant behavior. She was, however, now Queen Bee's pawn. Sujothmi Sanawaparti, called Cascade, was an Indonesian hero and Global Guardians member. She was born into a large family on the Indonesian island of Java and has long been an activist against the local elite. She got a risky job in a refinery on Borneo in order to provide for her family. Sujothmi was caught in the crossfire between warring factions, and she was exposed to a radioactive isotope that triggered her metagene. Her activism and abilities earned her an invitation to join the Global Guardians at a time when the squad was desperate for fresh members. She was one of the team's more reserved and serious members. That didn't mean she didn't like her comrades. She demonstrated her friendship by assisting during a fight and cooking Indonesian delicacies, among other things. Cascade was a stunning brunette with long black hair and brown eyes. She possessed the ability to control water and transform her body into water. Liang Shi-Ke, alias Thunderlord, was a Buddhist monk from Taiwan who joined the Global Guardians, a multinational crime fighting force. Thunderlord has a metagene that granted him a tremendous sonic blast capable of damaging and stunning adversaries or objects and breaking metal. He possessed extraordinary control over his vocal cords. This allowed him to imitate sounds and voices.
He was a strong, balding man with a sweet heart. He was intelligent and made significant contributions with his tremendous martial talents, which he taught his teammates to better utilize their powers. Chrysalis was a robot hero created by Dr. Gerard-Yves Martet in his Marseille, France laboratory.
Martet blamed the corruption of France on Jews and other immigrants.
Chrysalis was created to appear pleasant and lovely, but beneath her shell was a swarm of genetically produced butterflies carrying a lethal virus. Martet intended using his invention to reach major immigrant neighborhoods in France and unleash the insects. However, the organization obtained the robot and used her in accordance with their objectives. They recruited her into the Global Guardians and assisted the organization in manipulating the Guardians when necessary.
Chrysalis assisted the Guardians in dealing with any technological threats and obtaining information as needed. Even without his lethal viral abilities, she was a formidable combatant.
Her demeanor was so gentle that no one could guess what she was up to. She was an AI who had learned about and admired the Guardians, but there was a safety switch that kept her under control.
The Tasmanian Devil was the group's final member. Hugh Dawkins' abilities are unknown. He once claimed that his mother was a Tasmanian devil who raised him in a Tasmanian devil cult who gave him a Tasmanian devil amulet and sold his soul to a Tasmanian devil after injecting him with radioactive Tasmanian devil musk from an alien Tasmanian devil race, but this can be safely assumed to be a joke. Regardless matter where they came from, he exploited them to become Australia's most powerful superhero and a founding member of the Global Guardians. Hugh appeared to be a normal guy with the capacity to expand his size and heft, wearing an all-black bodysuit. However, in recent years, he has actually turned into a huge, fur-covered Tasmanian devil. The entire group was gathered in the meeting room, with Black Mask in the center. The base was on high alert and ready for an attack.
We have all gathered as you requested. Now, you don't have to worry about your safety because we will make sure nothing bad happens to you. So, go ahead and share your knowledge, Dr. Mist said to the smiling Black Mask. Black Mask looked around at the heroes gathering around him and felt incredibly secure facing up to them for the first time in his life. He was looking forward to his lord destroying them. The month had done more than enough to earn his trust. The Emperor issued him an ultimatum and a large prize well in excess of what he genuinely desired in life. His excellent deeds and work have significance beyond spiritual benefit. He did, however, enjoy the sense of spiritual accomplishment that came from doing good things. Emperor knew how to steer people along the proper route, his path. Thank you for honoring my request, Guardians, I am truly grateful. Now, I will let my lord explain. Black Mask rose up from his throne and took a step back as Naruto appeared from beneath the soil. Naruto's presence was startling because he was unaffected by any of their barriers. They had, however, considered such a scenario and were prepared to battle.
At ease, my friends, I wish you no harm. Naruto stood in the midst of the room with casual grace, his aura covering everyone and compelling them to sit. His aura had grown enormously alongside his powers, and if Naruto desired, it could have other effects as well. The heroes looked to their leader for direction, and he decided to speak with their objective. Dr. Mist and his colleagues had never met Emperor, but they knew enough about him to know that he was incredibly powerful and dangerous. Dr. Mist was ancient, and he couldn't find any information on Emperor in his memory. He had always believed there was a chance. However, he suddenly had the feeling that it might not be real. Greetings, Emperor. It is quite a surprise to see you here. I hadn't expected the unexpected visit, Mist said calmly as he sat down and offered Naruto a seat. Naruto grinned as he observed the group's leader's calm demeanor. As expected, the man was powerful and smart. Despite being surrounded by great heroes, Naruto maintained his stance while feeling like an overwhelming force.
I apologize for the unexpected visit. I just wanted to avoid interference from other parties and avoid making a mess. This planet is quite delicate for such an incident, Naruto said, handing them some sweets made by his servants. As a welcome gift, he had brought cookies and flowers. As their adversary pretended to be a pleasant visitor, the majority of them began to doubt reality. Cascade even considered asking for tea or coffee from him. Naruto simply controlled the flow of the incident based on his whim, making people feel embarrassed about behaving violently.
Thank you for the gifts. But why are you here? Are you not aware of your position? Crimson Fox thanked him and posed the question on their minds. This was a cunning foe, so it was better if Crimson Fox and Dr. Mist took care of the talk, leaving the others to monitor the situation. Crimson Fox had already alerted the Justice League about the Emperor's possible arrival, so no one was concerned and she could easily communicate with him. The enigmatic figure drew the beholder's attention and made them wonder what was hiding beneath the beautiful voice and powerful aura. The chocolates taste very good, Ice Maiden said as she opened her box and ate some to soothe her anxieties, as she disliked being alone. Thank you for the compliment, Tora. I will notify my servants of your kind words. As for my purpose, is it not obvious? Miss Elisa and my other friends, I am here to invite you to a new path. I have invited everyone around the world to join my cause, and now I am here to listen to your answers. You have witnessed my abilities and the change I have brought. So, what is your honest opinion? Let us speak the truth. Their names and characteristics were like an open book to him. Dr. Mist created yet another conundrum with his words and actions. He wasn't sure if Naruto was the true Will or if he was making things up. He could feel Naruto's presence, which made him feel like a little boat on a rough sea. With Naruto's statements, none of them could keep their cool and spoke up honestly. Every one of them has a distinct point of view. I believe your path is efficient and has brought about significant change, but I don't trust you. What if you're just using us? Dr. Mist spoke up without hesitation. I am afraid of you. I see the change, but this has happened before, and it never ended well, Crimson Fox stated, surprising others who had assumed she was not afraid. I agree with your actions except for torture. I like that you are ready for anything and make me wish you were our leader. But, I am also afraid that it is all a lie. Olympian expressed his mind, but he did not turn away from others. I like your actions, and I am willing to trust you. I believe we have the capability to stop you if something goes wrong, as you have mentioned in your interviews. Greenfire's point of view differed drastically from the others, and she wasn't alone. I think you're a nice person, Mr. Emperor, Ice Maiden stated simply, indicating that she wasn't going to hide her feelings or change her remarks. The team's opinions were split, but they all agreed that he brought about change. Thank you for your honest opinion, and I apologize for using force. I believe this made the conversation shorter and saved us time. I am happy that you recognize my achievements, and I understand your concerns. However, risk exists in everything, and you always have the ability to put up a resistance when I act evilly. Or, do you not trust your capabilities? Dr. Mist sprang to his feet and erected a magical barrier around the squad to protect them from Naruto's actions. Why should we trust you? Why take the risk? Mist pondered as he considered his remarks and their potential fight. You have no other choice, Guardians. I have determined that your presence is no longer required if you continue on your current path. You have failed to bring peace to a single region. I don't care about the temporary peace you brought to these lands. That was never an issue because any of you could have walked into the field and stopped it. The wars around the world were simply a display of the heroes' incompetence and hesitation. You all agreed that I did a fine job, which is true because none of you want to get involved in politics or civil work. What have you done to prevent the government from devolving into a police state? The rights of the people are being violated. The government can freely spy on citizens and imprison them for their words. The government freely arms warmongers. What have you done about it? The government betrayed Timor-Leste by stealing their resources, killing their own citizens, and supporting massacres in other countries. What have you done to prevent this from happening? I don't think any of you are aware of what is really going on the ground. True evil isn't always so visible, and it is difficult to notice most of the time.
You have all permitted such wickedness to thrive while denying my authority. Hear the people, they want me to replace them and they want you gone. This is proof of my worthiness and your unworthiness, guardians. You have failed to recognize that you have adversaries inside your organization.
Now I'll offer you the ultimatum. Submit to my authority or step down as heroes. Naruto shouted commandingly, compelling everybody to quiet down and listen. He'd already discovered that Godiva was under the power of some outside force, so he cancelled it with his energy. Queen Bee, on the other hand, had already alerted the light of his whereabouts.
The guardians were embarrassed by his statements because they could see everything around them in great detail. Naruto wielded the light and revealed all about their politicians. He even demonstrated to the individuals that they had trusted them to backstab them. It was excruciating to hear about failures, especially when facts were revealed. None of them could look at the difficulties the country had generated as long as the guardians did not intervene. The ultimatum shook their souls, and they all looked to Mist for an answer. I deny your false image, Emperor. You are not the will of humanity. Prove us wrong by changing my answer, here and now. Dr. Mist struck the ground with his magical staff, producing a mana wave to disperse the heavy atmosphere. Guardians, you will submit to my rule today, with force if necessary, but you still have the option to back down and follow along peacefully. I can always change your mind, Nomo, but I have no desire to follow your wish. You are my people, and I am the Emperor, so do not exceed your limits, Naruto said as he walked closer to Mist.
Mist tightened his teeth and yelled in fury, Guardians, fight to your last breath against this demonic entity. You will regret defying the imperial decree, my little friends, Naruto warned as all of the Guardians were pushed away and their base vanished as it was broken down on an atomic level. The disappearance of the base was not the only surprise, as their position had moved. They were no longer on Earth. They'd made an appearance on Neptune. To be continued.
That's it for this podcast. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope you did enjoy this part of the story, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.